You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caporelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies, just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators, to another great episode. Glad to have you back as always. Before we get started, a quick shout out for the company that sponsors this podcast, the company I founded, the company I work for, Strategy Generation Company. We provide workshops, training, tools, resources, all on the subject of strategy, mostly aimed at marketing, product, and business managers within medium-sized to large-sized companies, but we also do strategy consulting and coaching for companies of all sizes in all industries. So go out to strategygeneration.com, check us out, and see if we can be of some help. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get to today's question, which is, Dear Strategy, how do I figure out a portfolio investment strategy for a product line that is a delighter but doesn't bring in money on its own? Okay, so all the way back, I'm going to go back to episode 2, believe it or not, and I'll post that link in the blog as well that goes along with this episode, but we talked about non-revenue generating products, and there was a question around, how do you build a strategy for a non-revenue generating product? And, the idea was, look, products exist for some reason inside of a company. And unless you're a charitable organization, and even if you're a charitable organization, most companies can't afford to lose money and stay in business very long, right? So you have to know that every product that you have out there ultimately has to have some end goal of making money for your company in some way. And so here we have a similar type of a question. It may be that we can interpret this as a non-revenue generating product because the question says it doesn't bring in money on its own. I don't know if that's revenue or profit that's being referred to, but it is the same basic idea, is that, we assume here the product is not making money for the company, but it's something that people like. So how do I plan for future investment for a product like that? So here's what you have to think about. If you're a product manager or a business manager in charge of a product like that, it's all going to come back down to the same thing we always talk about, which is the value proposition. And, those of you who need a little refresher on that term, value proposition is the value that your product is bringing to your customers or your consumers. So when you provide a product or a service, that product or a service is bringing some value to someone's life. That value can be in terms of an emotional value, an economic value. Basically, it's fulfilling some need. That's why someone buys a product. And when something is fulfilling some need, they're typically willing to pay something for it, right? And even in products that are given for free, usually there is some transaction that will occur because very few free products are never compensated for. Even if you take a model like Wikipedia, right? We all know Wikipedia. I use it every day. And basically, Wikipedia is a free resource. But if you look, once a year, they do a campaign where they're asking people for money, saying, look, we're giving you this for free, but if you feel it's adding value, please pay us so that we can continue to support this and continue to provide this service for you. And every year I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure they make enough money to keep the thing going. Otherwise, it wouldn't keep going, right? Which means that there's some number of people that are willing to pay for the service they're getting, even though they could get it for free, right? And that's typically the power of a value proposition. When something is really valuable to somebody, they want to pay to keep it going, right? They want to pay to make sure that they continue to receive that service. And that payment can come in any number of different forms. So that's basically how a value proposition works. So now with this particular question, one of the things that concerns me about the question is that this person says that the product they have that's not bringing in any money is a delighter. So what that tells me is that there is a value proposition associated with it, that it is delighting customers. People want it. People are, getting some value from it, but it's not making any money. So something's wrong there, okay? Strategically, something's wrong. And so the first thing I would do is I would tell this person, go find out what's happening here, because you're going to come back with one of two answers, right? One is that the product is truly a delighter and you're just not charging enough for it. The other option is that the product isn't as much of a delighter as you think it is, and that's why you're not making money off of it. One of those two things will be the case. You have to go out and find out from customers which one of those two options it is. And in this case, I would just go out and ask them. Now, don't skimp on the amount of people that you are going to ask. Go out and get really good samplings from all over the country, all over the world, wherever your product is sold. Don't just get anecdotes from your sales force, right? Go out and actually talk to customers. Find out what value the product is bringing. Find out what value the product is bringing versus competitive products, because that's going to also affect how much they're willing to pay. And then find out if that's really aligned with your view that the product is a delighter. Then you're going to find out which option it is. If it's option A, where you're not charging enough, the easy answer as far as an investment plan would go is charge more. But I would tell you that's probably not going to go over very well, right? Because what happens with value is a product will actually be worth whatever you're charging for it. So if people are used to getting a product for a certain price, that's what it becomes worth to them, right? And the minute you try and charge more for that, that becomes really, really difficult. If you don't believe me on that, anybody who has a cable package and gets one of those introductory deals that for the first year you get your cable and your internet and everything else for a lot lower than the normal price. Believe me, when that 1 year is up and you have been used to paying whatever rate you were on, you are more than upset when all of a sudden they raise your rate by sometimes double, right? Because you're off the promotion. And many, many people do not like their cable companies because of this very reason, right? Because what you charge somebody something for a service, that's what it becomes worth. So be really careful if you come back and you find out that people do see more value than you're charging. You just can't raise the price. So what I would recommend you do there is enhance the features that they really like. Do something that's adding even additional value, and then you can raise the prices according to that. And then hopefully all of that will come in the form of profit sometime in the future. If, on the other hand, you find out that, in fact, the product isn't as much of a delighter as you thought it was, then similar approach where you do have to enhance the product and so forth. But in this case, you're not just enhancing features that people already like. You're actually going back to the drawing board and saying, well, what is it that I do need to build into this product or into a brand new product that is going to add value that I am going to be able to charge for? And that's a little bit harder because now you're kind of starting from scratch, right? In both of those scenarios, make sure you're always taking the competition into account, because again, what you're going to be able to charge is always going to be affected by what people can pay elsewhere. So that has to come into your view in both of those scenarios. But that's basically what you need to do, right? Go ask your customers and then put an investment plan in place that's in line with one of those two options. Okay. So that's how I would recommend you go forward here. What I wouldn't recommend you do is continue to not make money off of something that could potentially be adding a lot of value, because that's just no good for anybody. I also would not recommend that you just put in place an investment plan to start charging more without going out and getting feedback. It sounds obvious, but companies do that, okay? And it usually doesn't end up succeeding. So those are two places I would not go. But definitely if you are, have some initial input and you can go out and find out what's really going on, that's how you're going to put together an investment plan around one of those two options. Okay, so hopefully that is a helpful answer. Again, if you have a question that you want to be featured on the show, please go out to dearstrategy.com or dearstrategy.net. They both go to the same place. And you can find the Ask a Question link. Click on that. It'll take you to a contact form where you can go ahead and ask a question to be featured on the show. Also, please go out to strategygeneration.com, which is the site for the sponsor of the show, the company that I founded and own and work for. We are providing this show for free. So if you're finding any value in this show, go buy something from us. Again, we provide workshops, training, resources. So I know you'll find a lot of great things there that hopefully do add value to your job and to your life. And finally, while you're doing all that, don't forget to make time for the plan. And we'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.